Exploring Squares, Part 4 by Jeff Simpson. Here we have 3 squared and 4 squared. The Part 1 and 2 videos showed how you can combine 2 squares to make a bigger square. If you rearrange the 3 squared, wrapping it around 2 sides of the 4 squared, they both combine to make 5 squared. Three squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Here's another way to combine 4 squared with 3 squared to get 5 squared. Rearrange the 2 squares so that they become 2 rectangles with 1 square left over. There. We have 2 rectangles and a leftover square. Each rectangle contains 12 little squares. Now, cut each rectangle in half with a diagonal line, thus creating 4 right triangles. Each triangle contains 6 little squares. Now, rearrange the right triangles and move in the leftover square. There are 25 little squares altogether, and 25 is the same as 5 squared, so we now have 5 squared. This 5 squared fits exactly corner to corner with 3 squared and 4 squared, making a right triangle between them. The sides of the right triangle measure 3, 4, and 5 units long. Or here's another way to look at this. The sides of the right triangle measure the square root of 9, square root of 16, and the square root of 25. Let's do the same thing with 3 squared and 2 squared. When we combine 9 and 4, we get 13, but how can we arrange 13 boxes in a square shape? Well, here's how you do it. You rearrange the 2 squares so that they become 2 rectangles with 1 square left over. And each rectangle contains 6 squares. Then cut each rectangle in half with a diagonal line, thus creating 4 right triangles. And each triangle contains 3 squares. Now rearrange the right triangles and move in the leftover square. And voila, the area of this square is 13 little square units. You now have 13 units, square units, in the shape of a square. This new square fits exactly corner to corner with 2 squared and 3 squared, making a right triangle between them. The sides of the right triangle measure the square root of 4, which is 2, square root of 9, and square root of 13. Well, the square root of 4 we know is 2. The square root of 9, we know that's 3. Square root of 13, that's a little trickier. It's approximately 3.605551 and more numbers. But we'll round that and say it's approximately 3.6. And you can find this on your calculator. Here's another way to combine 2 squared with 3 squared to get 13. Step number 1, make a 2 by 3 rectangle. You see how it fills in the space between them there? Now make a spiral of rectangles. Well, each rectangle is the same size as the other one. Now we'll make a spiral of diagonals. See how they go around and connect with each other. Fill in the square. Erase the rectangles. And there it is. 4, 9, and 4 plus 9. 2 squared plus 3 squared equals 13. That's another picture of it. Let's use the same way to combine 1 squared with 3 squared to get a new square containing 10 square units. Step 1, make a 1 by 3 rectangle. Step 2, make a spiral of rectangles. Now make a spiral of diagonals. Fill in the square. Erase the rectangles, and we see a picture of 1 squared plus 3 squared equals 10, or 1 plus 9 equals 10. Let's use the same way to combine 1 squared with 2 squared to get a new square containing 5 square units. First, we'll make a 1 by 2 rectangle and make a spiral with those, and a spiral of diagonals. Fill in the square, erase the rectangles. There's 1, 4, and 5. That's 1 squared plus 2 squared equals 5. Now, it's time for you to draw some squares. Go get some graph paper and a pencil. Draw a 4 by 4 square and label it 4 squared. Draw a 2 by 2 square, corner to corner with the first square, and label it 2 squared. You're going to construct a new square. How many square units do you think it will contain? If you watch the part 1, 2, and 3 videos, you may be thinking that the new square will contain 20 square units because 4 squared plus 2 squared equals 20. Well, let's proceed and see if that is correct. Let's follow the same 4 steps that were presented earlier. For each step, stop the video, do your drawing, and then start the video again. Step 1, make a 4 by 2 rectangle. Step 2, make a spiral of rectangles. They're all the same size. Step 3, make a spiral of diagonals. Now, before the 4th step, let's figure out how many square units are contained in the new square within the 4 diagonals. Each rectangle contains 8 square units, and each right triangle contains 4 square units. 4 times 4 makes 16 square units so far, and there are 4 square units in the middle. 16 plus 4 equals 20 square units altogether. Step 4 now, erase the rectangles and label the new square with 20. 4 squared plus 2 squared equals 20, and 20 is in the shape of a square. Now it's time for you to try one of these on your own. Draw 2 squares, 5 squared and 2 squared, setting them corner to corner. Now use what you know to construct a new square that contains 29 little square units. Stop the video and do your drawing. Then start the video when you're ready to see the solution. Here's the solution. (29). 5 squared plus 2 squared equals 29 little square units, and 29 is in the shape of a square. All of the examples in this video have shown two squares set corner to corner, making a right angle. In other words, they're perpendicular to each other. Then a third square set at an angle has joined the first two squares, also touching corner to corner. In every case, a right triangle has been created in the space between the three squares. We could reverse the situation starting with the right triangles. Okay. Now we'll fit squares to the two flat sides of the triangle. And finally, we'll fit a square to the hypotenuse of the right triangle. Based on this last idea, here's one more challenge for you. Start with an 8 by 6 right triangle and construct 3 squares, one fitted to each side of the triangle. Stop the video and do your drawing, then start the video when you're ready to see the solution. Okay, here's the solution. There's 8 squared on that side of the triangle. Below the triangle we have 6 squared. And now we'll make a spiral of rectangles so we can construct the new square. Spiral of diagonals. We'll erase the rectangles. Now a little bit of calculating shows us that the area of that new square must be 100. In other words, 10 squared. And the square root of 100 is 10, so the length of the hypotenuse of that right triangle is 10. In this video, we've used rectangles, diagonals, and squares to form a right triangle, and we've used right triangles to organize 3 squares. There is more to learn about this, but this is enough for now, so that's all for the Part 4 video. Thanks for watching. And please share these ideas with other people who can benefit from them.